we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not. Hi there, and welcome to Better Than Not, the podcast that aims to capture shifting perspectives and thought-provoking ideas in conversation, while asking the question, is anything what it seems? Based on my series, A Changing Frame of Reference, which you can read on the Substack app, and I hope you will, as it might give you some insight into what the podcast is all about. I also hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel, Better Than Not, so I can continue to bring you great guests like I have today. I'm your host, Doug Gardham, and today it's a pleasure to welcome back Bob Gardham. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Doug. Glad to see you.
Cool. You'll recognize Bob and I both have the same last name. That's because Bob is my dad's brother, or in other words, he's my uncle. And with that, I was going to say we're starting I don't usually do this, but I don't have a guest back as quickly as I have. We had Bob here and had a great chat in episode 108. But we didn't get to some of the things that Bob was involved with Veteran Affairs, which really coincided a lot with the memorials for Remembrance Day. And I don't usually have much of a topic for an episode usually, but today it's good. This is coming out on Remembrance Day. And we want to kind of shed light on Remembrance Day for not only the world, but for Canada. And we'll talk a little bit. We did describe it because many of the families have had relatives or family members involved with it in World War II. Bob's dad, or my grandpa, was there to clean up concentration camps, which Bob talked about in the last episode. But I also have an uncle that are past now, an uncle and aunt that were both very involved, Uncle Leighton and Aunt Betty. I also had a uncle who I never met, Robert Pegg, who died in training in England. So there's a lot of connection with our families. And in our introduction earlier on today, Bob told me there's another individual that I didn't know about. Bob, there's another connection to family that I'm going to dedicate this episode to all of those and all of those that did participate in the war. But you said there's another family member.
Yes, Malcolm Russell Smith, who was born in Tantallon, Nova Scotia, and would have been your great uncle.
Okay.
Right, if I got that right. I get my genealogy right here. And he made it through Vimy Ridge in the First World War, and then was killed at Hill 70, which was about 4 or 5 months after Vimy Ridge. He was a machine gunner, and he's buried in France at Villiers Station, I believe it's called, one of the cemeteries there. And I had the honor of going to his gravestone when I was over there.
Oh, wow.
And having a picture of it. And he was an interesting chap. And I have some interesting facts we can talk about World War I. But anyway, I'll let you go back to your introduction.
So Bob, is that your mom's brother or your dad's brother?
That would be Mom's uncle.
Oh,
my
wow.
mother's uncle.
Okay.
Your grandmother's uncle.
Hence great. Yes.
It is great. Yes.
Wow.
And your great grandfather served in overseas as well. And I'll have an interesting story to relate on that later on as we move ahead. But I'll let you continue with your move in through the introduction, and then I'll add some additional information as we move along.
Well, so with Bob's involvement with Veteran Affairs, he started, as we talked about a lot, as the computer age came upon us, Bob was very involved with doing a lot of things, and including websites and getting those connected. But as he kind of moved through, I'll say, his career, he started to get very involved with, I'll call it Remembrance Day. And
Hmm.
you can go there today. We may even be able to get some of the sites mentioned today, but and find out an awful lot of what our history is about in these wars. War is a terrible thing,
Yes.
in whatever, and you can see its effect on family, friends, and our society overall. It's something that is there, but at the same time, there's a lot of loved ones that we lose because of it. And so I thought it'd be great to kind of bring Bob on today to talk about how he kind of got involved with this in the first place. Because there's a lot of things that happen with Veteran Affairs, but in particular, how this was kind of combined, kind of, I'll say it probably climaxed with the 60th memorial year, that you got very involved with and organized, Bob. So
Mhm.
how did you kind of get started in this and this interest in it? Because you're very interested in it, in ancestry of our own family. But
Hmm.
what got you kind of intrigued in the Veteran Affairs to take it on almost as a personal charge?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I always kind of had an interest. My dad was in the war, and we grew up and we talked about the war. The war was a major, and a lot of Second World War veterans really uh, took over a number of jobs. It was the beginning of the women's movement in a sense, because a lot of women had to take over men's jobs because they went overseas. But anyway, back to my side of it, I got involved in the internet, as I mentioned, very early on. In fact, I got a date here. We opened the first website for Veterans Affairs Canada, which I was, and myself and a team of other individuals were able to put together. And it came into being in November 11th, 1996,
Oh, wow.
which seems like a huge amount of time ago. But
Well,
it's
30
always
years.
been, yeah, it's been the responsibility of the Department of Veterans Affairs to maintain the memory of those who fought overseas and those who fought in different wars throughout Canada. So um, when we started the website, generally information was always just in written format. You would get a book or you get a newspaper article or bulletin or whatever. But what the web allowed us to do was, one, to publish our own records, our own information that we knew about, but also keep it in a permanent spot
Mm.
so people could go there. We would, you know, hundreds of years ago, they had these things called broadsheets, which people published, and the broadsheet would tell people the different political movements and history and a whole bunch of things. But they got lost and people didn't
Mhm.
remember. And some of it was questionable how good they were. Anyway, when the web started initially, we thought to ourselves and said, gee, this would be a great medium in which to tell people about Canada's involvement
Mhm.
in the war. I mean, we've always known the facts and the Vimy Memorial and all of these people have heard them. I'm not sure, some people don't know what they are, where they come from, how they get going, so forth. So I said, and the other priority we had was to relate that information to children or to youth and let them understand. Um, I grew up with history books, and I found history to be tremendously boring at times. And it never seemed to be written by very interesting people. Um, but there are some books on Canada's involvement in the war
Mhm.
effort, and they are tremendous reads. Um, but anyway, So he said, well, let's.
Can you name like one of those books, Bob, that you've kind of
Yes,
perused?
it's one called Vimy Ridge, which was hmm,
Pierre Burton.
Pierre Burton
Yes.
wrote.
So that still stands the test of time. That book does.
That book is because really Pierre Burton, who, if you've read any of his works, he talks about the history of various topics, but it's not the dull, dusty history that we tended to grow up with.
Yes.
It's very interesting. It tells the story. There's a lot of background information that a lot of people didn't know about, and I learned a lot from his book Vimy.
Okay. Okay.
And he wrote a lot about the Great Canadian Railway, and how it. And
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah,
He
but
wrote.
I
I read his 1812, and
yes, that's a very good.
to your comment is that he seemed to be able to capture feelings of how people felt during those times, not just like you say the dates and what was
Yeah,
associated with what went on, but
yeah,
kind of like what was going on with people and how they were feeling and what they were experiencing more than just the dates of
yeah.
history. So to your point about reading history, it can be dull if it's just a bunch of numbers about dates for sure.
But one of the great things today with the media that we deal with.
Mm,
One of the best, it's amazing, but it's a lot of veterans will tell you this, and even Canadian veterans. One of the best war movies ever produced was Saving Private Ryan.
okay.
The opening scenes in the battle
Oh,
coming in on D-Day was, and I talked to veterans who were there, and they said that was the closest we've ever seen to what it was actually like.
amazing.
And I was able to go through the various beaches in World War II after I did the 60th anniversary elements, and I was able to I took my own little project after that was all over. I took every beach, the British, the Americans, Canadians. I went out low tide and I walked in. I
Oh
wasn't
wow.
walking through the water, but I was trying to visualize in my mind what these people were actually experiencing. And it blew me away. And in all fairness, when you take a look at the British or the Americans going in through Omaha Beach, that was one of the most difficult beaches in the whole world to gain a hold, or in the whole D-Day to gain a hold
Oh,
on. There's a lot died in that.
oh,
And but the point of the matter is, it's this the media that we have today can be so strong and such and bring out such emotion in us.
oh yeah.
We have to be careful that we don't do too much
Right.
or spend too much time with it. But by the same token, it can teach a great lesson that we, unfortunately, most of the time was always just what was in a book.
Yeah.
And you asked me, I gave you Pierre Burton, but there's many authors. And in fact, I read the Journal of Sir Arthur Currie. I
Okay.
don't know who he is. I don't know if you know who he is.
I do not know.
He was the successful general that took the Battle of Vimy Ridge to a whole new level
Oh, okay. Okay.
in World War One, and he was probably the person that made Canada the
Okay.
nation it is today. But anyway, I'll get
Before
back
we
to
move off this project that you did on your own, can
yeah.
you like describe like with your feet in the water and coming up on that beach today and like you've probably spent more time in the history of those events than most just because
Mm-hmm.
of your involvement in it.
Yeah.
Can you express like any of the feelings that like that you felt like when you were doing that like physical walk of actually being there and knowing the soldiers that had run through that water with a very different picture than you were looking at?
Uh, it brought back such a myriad of emotions.
Mm.
Because you hear a lot of the about the death and the dying and wounded and the people. But then you also heard some interesting talking to veterans who always could seem to find a brief humor in certain things, And so all of this kind of gets mingled together. And let's face it, I wasn't there at the time.
Right.
So what I was trying to recreate in my mind is what they must have seen. I tried to get rid of all these thoughts and just say, well, what was it like for them? And I told you at the start, I walked it at low tide. These guys came on in landing craft. And as soon as they opened those doors, there was a hail of bullets. And people just died. And a lot drowned
Oh,
because they were carrying 40 to 80 pounds
that's
on their
crazy to me.
backs,
Yeah, it's just crazy
you
to me.
know. And they came down, the door came down, they'd run in, and it was nothing but water. So what do? Do I sit here and get shot? Or do I move and drown? What do I do? And nobody was there to say, well, yeah, get your breath now, we'll go in. No, you just went. And whatever happened. And one of the issues that one of the veterans said that a lot of us ended up was the survivor's guilt. And a lot of veterans had that because they're standing beside a guy. They went in, they survived, they came home. The guy beside them didn't.
Yeah.
Why him and not me?
Yeah.
So some of that issue.
So
all that's kind of going through your mind.
So
and you're,
Bob, just before we go on here, you just kind of said a little line about talking to veterans.
Yeah.
So as part of this work that you went through, did you talk to a lot of veterans of experience? Like, did you get a chance to?
Absolutely. One of the programs that is within the sub-program of the Remembrance Program is to not celebrate, but to have every 5 years we would honor various battles, and we
Okay.
would take existing veterans, not them all, there was a lot of them, and in addition to that, children, and we would take them, and the children from school kids, they would get to sit with these veterans and go over what had happened and what they'd been through. And you got to remember the age at that time, most of them are 20,
Oh,
21,
they're
20,
young.
19,
Oh my goodness.
so young.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
Yes.
crazy to me that's
And so this a lot of the school children or the teens and youth that went with us, they would shake their heads. They just can't believe it. You mean you're the same age as I am today, and you did that? How did you do that? So it was a wonderful learning experience.
It's one of those things, Bob, when you say this, because I mean, Saving Private Ryan, as you mentioned, Spielberg, I think, was quoted in saying he was making this to be as realistic as possible to end war movies, in a sense. Like, this would be the end. He didn't do that. If anything,
No.
we got more.
Yes.
But I've always found it intriguing watching the war movies because when I was that age, the tough part for my life was getting up on time to go to class and having to walk across the quad in like the cold weather. It
Yes.
wasn't like the Vietnam War or World War II when you didn't know whether you would actually get to walk back, right? Like, it
Well,
was
that's
just
it. Yeah.
like we were so, what's the word? Like, gifted in a sense of how we got to live that we thought was tough
Yeah.
compared to the realities of what they had to go through. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
it is crazy.
It is, and it's amazing how they were able to survive it. But a lot of the stuff, I remember talking to one veteran, and he would have been at the time, and he was a World War II veteran. He would have been close in his 80s, and he recalled telling the story of being in Vancouver.
Oh,
well after the war, back in the 70s, and he was and he had a flashback. And he was all of a sudden right back in the middle of the war, in the middle of a battle.
Oh.
And they had to take him off the streetcar in Vancouver and bus and take him to a mental health clinic. Because what was happening, what we found with PTSD or shell shock or whatever you want to call it, battle fatigue, sometimes they call it, was the survivors of that put a block in their mind. But as you get older, the blocks go away. And sometimes you have no control over it. I remember my father, we were living in the church at the time, and there was a big thunderstorm, and Trinity Church, which was kitty corner. My dad had a heart condition, so he used to have an afternoon nap. That was part of his therapy. We heard this huge bang. It was like a bomb going off. I went into my dad's room, and he was under the bed.
Oh.
This was 10, 15 years later. So he was still there. He immediately was back in World War II.
Wow.
And we don't recognize that. So whatever happened, whatever these people went through, it stayed with them for years and years and years, even into their old age. And they never forgot their experiences. Sometimes they wouldn't relate it because it was too painful for them. And that's when we talked in the last interview where a lot didn't like to talk to their kids about their war experience.
Well, that's kind of brings the question, like when you're talking to these veterans, and part of this is to go on the website. Part of it is for the memorializing of what went on. Did you have like challenges talking to veterans that they were able to even like open up about some of the experiences they went through? Like,
generally not. Most of them understood that they were there for a reason, and they understood the reason.
Okay.
They were there to educate.
They had a purpose.
That's a purpose. Yeah. And that's really what Remembrance Day is all about, is educating us and us to remember what these people had gone through. And once you've talked to a number of these people, I remember talking to, and it didn't matter. One chap was a lieutenant, and he was in the World War II. He was coming in on D-Day, and he had a Jeep. And his driver of the Jeep was to his left, I think it was. But what would happen was the Germans had machine guns and in big bunkers, and they would just spray the whole beach back and forth. He said, my driver was killed instantly. I survived.
Wow.
All because of 2 inches.
Yeah.
Had I been 2 inches over, I would have been gone too. And he may have survived. Who knows? We don't know.
Wow.
So it was, but they understood that they needed to relate these stories. They needed to educate Canadians as to what was going on. And unfortunately, we live a pretty good lifestyle. A lot of people don't want to think about this stuff. It's not easy.
No.
So anyway, yeah, it's tough times. But I think a lot of the veterans that I talked to were just, some of the stories they told us were just amazing. And unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to talk to a lot of World War I veterans, because by the time I was working, they were pretty much, they were into their late 90s and early 100s and whatnot. But then you talked about me getting involved in my own genealogy, or our genealogy. But I can remember our grandfather, our great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, your great-grandfather, I get them all there. Anyway, he was in Britain, and he got a gunshot wound while in France, and he was sent back to England. But back in 1917, there was this thing called the Spanish flu.
Right.
Yeah. Your grandmother, at that time, she was born in 1914. and sure, her mother died, got
Hmm.
sick on a Saturday and died on a Thursday. And she and the family ended up in an orphanage because the men were away overseas fighting. And um, her father had a gunshot wound, and he was recovering in a hospital in France, and didn't get back until actually get back till well into 1918 after the war was over. So a lot of stories that we really don't
No, for sure.
don't know what's going on. But
Well,
anyway, yeah,
this is why, to me, this your mom's my grandma's story, because Hilda
Hilda,
also had red hair.
yes,
And so the Anna Green Gables story is so relative to like our family, right? Because like your mom was Anna Green Gables.
she was, because what they did when the parents were gone. I mean, when they were, um, she would have loved to have been adopted, but she didn't know her father.
Hmm.
Her mother was dead. She eventually got put out on a farm out in Argyll Shore and spent the formative early stages of her life going to school, because the way it was set up was she would go up she would go out there, and she was to help one of the seniors look after the senior, because there were no seniors homes or anything like that. So she was taken in by concerned people, and what they
Wow.
had to do is she looked after the grandmother, but their responsibility was to make sure she had food and went to school. And so it was very much like what Anna Green
Oh yeah.
Gables had gone through. So, we also often think about these stories as being something in the mind of Ellen Montgomery or something.
Yes.
These things actually happened,
I
you
know
know.
it is kind of a bizarre, and like you mentioned with the war, those stories are probably more frequent than we even know, unless
Oh,
you're intimate with the families that were
yeah.
involved, right? So
Well, in fact, with the story about the Spanish flu, there's actually interesting. There's more people died in Prince Edward Island from the Spanish flu than there were killed overseas in World War One. So that's yeah,
that
that
it's
is
neat
surprising.
that you brought those numbers together, because it really does make you think a little bit, right? Because how
Yeah.
things are, shall we say, exposed, and then you get down to the facts, and like who would believe what you just said with regards to more died of the Spanish flu than died in the war? Like
Hmm.
everyone would say, oh no, the
Oh no,
casualties of the war were beyond that, and it's like, I don't think so.
I can't remember actual numbers now, but I think it was something like we. Oh, I won't even venture, but I know it was considerably more because I can't. Sometimes the numbers I lose them. But we lost more people in World War One in Canada than we did in World War Two. But we weren't there for it, and the only reason we know about it is through movies
Yes.
and and books and whatnot and so forth. But it was a terrible time. I guess the closest we could say of trying to understand what it must have been like was what we went through with COVID. And I don't think it was at all
Yeah.
near what they had to endure
Very,
during those
it's
various
interesting
things.
you bring that up, because it is a phenomena. There's no doubt
Hmm.
about it. Um, and we'll be talking about it forever. Um,
Yes.
and like you said, it falls in the category of the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Like it's a pandemic that affects a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it came at the time it did, where we're bridging so many technologies that like you could stay in contact with people and
Hmm.
never leave your house,
Oh, yeah.
which
That's right.
brings a whole new world. And it's interesting now because we have this podcast format
Yeah.
where we actually can learn with people through conversations that are not necessarily sitting in the same room, and
Oh yeah.
it gives us a connection that we're not even aware we need.
Yeah.
So it is kind of neat. I wanted to get back to your work because we started to talk about some of the interviews you were doing with veterans
Yes.
and how that came about. Like, was it specifically for one of the particular memorials, or did it? Can we
No.
listen to those today on the
If you
website?
go to the veterans.ca or veterans.gc.ca, there's close to 400 interviews
Oh, really?
with veterans about their experiences, including the last surviving iron, or not iron, the highest decoration. Uh,
Officer? You mean like of the war?
yeah, the name just went right out of my head. But anyway, it was the last recipient that survived past the war and into the early stages was uh, Smokey Smith, and he was
Okay.
amazing. And oh, well, the name just flipped right through my mind.
Well,
But
there's a lot of them too.
yeah, but that was the equivalent on the German side. I sort of said Iron Cross, but it wasn't. It was the Victoria Cross. Yeah, Victoria Cross is the highest honor to be bestowed on a soldier for
Eh,
bravery
So is that for a Canadian soldier or
and
any
British.
and British soldier? Okay, okay. And it's the
Yeah,
Victoria Cross because we think
the
of like
Victoria Cross.
what
Yeah.
is it, Purple Hearts, and like there's a few different ones
Well,
that we hear
we
the
lose it
American
because
fluids.
of other countries.
Right.
They bring out theirs. It was the Purple Heart Medal of Honor is what it is in the U.S.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but we don't. It was interesting when I went through the American cemetery near Omaha Beach. They have ability to, if they received a Medal of Honor, they would put the engraving in gold on the tombstone.
Oh, wow.
But I remember Smokey at one time we were over in Vimy,
Okay.
and somebody had asked Smokey, what's it like to be the highest decorated soldier, to be such a hero? And he looked directly at the person who asked the question, and he put his hand out like this, and he said, "I'm not the hero. There's the heroes."
Yeah.
And he pointed to the cemetery outside. He said, "Those are the heroes.
Yeah.
I was just fortunate enough to survive it." But that was the way they looked at it. But the
Well,
Americans kind
I
of looked at their heroes as being had to be identified specifically, and
right.
they used to put gold gilding on their monument or on their headstone.
Well, it is a huge recognition, right, from that
Oh,
perspective, and I mean
yeah.
you've it's hard to even fathom what means giving up your life for such a thing like that. But it also kind of, now I'm just thinking about this a little further with the medals because of course the movies that we see, they're presented that way too, right? And you get it, the accolades that are associated with that from the public. But what did that person have to go through for that, like, recognition? Like it's almost like we talked in the last episode, was they've seen things that as humans we're probably not supposed to see. You know
No.
what I mean? Like it's just like, so I often wonder whether that medal, though it's meant in honor and homage as the person who has done these heroic acts,
Mm-hmm.
what does that feel like for the person who's receiving it? And just as you said with Smokey saying, like, those are the heroes and those graves before us. Um, does that have mixed emotions for them when,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
why am I
Um,
getting this? They did the same kind of thing.
yeah, and there was a lot of people that did some very, very heroic
Oh,
things,
yeah.
and nobody around to see it.
There's another point, Bob, is
Yeah.
like how many things went unseen.
Oh, well, in Smokey's case, he was in northern Italy, and the Germans were coming through on a couple of tanks, and his troop was up in a church, right? And they were,
Oh,
but Smokey was down in the ditch with his best friend for years, and he was in the ditch, and the Germans were coming. The tanks were there, and the Germans had their submachine gun, and Smokey had what was called a pita, which was basically a bazooka. Okay, the
yep,
Canadian
yep.
British version. And Smokey just said, "The hell with this." And he jumped out of this ditch. His friend had just been shot. He was badly wounded. Smokey got out with his pita. Boom. And it scared the Germans so much and blew up the tank that they all hightailed it back. They thought the whole squadron was down on them, but the squadron was up in the church watching all this take place. And it was the lieutenant who recommended that he be given a Victoria Cross. So,
Okay.
and the interesting thing about the Victoria Cross, and by the way, on the Veterans website has all of this information about Victoria Cross and the winners and so forth and so on. But once you receive Victoria Cross, you never go back to war.
You
That's
never
it.
what?
Go back to war.
Oh, really?
No. As soon as they found out that he had been nominated for the Victoria Cross, he was shipped back to England, and he was given the Victoria Cross by George III, seven, can't remember the numbers,
Okay.
in his private apartments. And one of the things, the closest they were trying to do, we don't think of it now, but back then they wanted the people in Canada to know at the same time as they did in
Okay.
Britain.
Okay.
So they said the king gave him the Victoria Cross, and he said, "You keep this in your pocket until we tell you otherwise."
No
So
way.
the story goes that Smokey was in a tavern several days later, or a couple of days later, and one of the officers came in and said, "Smokey, that medal you got, you can put that on now." Because they had related the news, and he was close to Abbotsford. I think it was Burnaby, BC.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was out near end of the country. He said, "That's interesting." He said, "I put that on and never drank. I never bought a drink for myself for the rest of my life." And he
It's
liked his drinks.
it is kind of like hard today, I think, for many to understand that timing part. Like it's like
Oh,
because everything today, I mean, is just instantly released, it seems, around the world. And like
yeah.
even information, like we know almost instantly because of camera phones and things like that,
Oh,
things
yeah.
that are going on almost
Yeah.
anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like when you think back to some of the movies we see about knowing where soldiers, the enemy is on both sides,
Yeah.
and not knowing that they're there, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it seems almost impossible. Like how could they not know they were there? Like did they not have? No, they didn't actually have those
No,
things.
the
And
things that we take for
oh,
granted.
it's crazy
It's
to me.
amazing.
Yeah.
And how they found these things out. And some people didn't find these things out until months, years later, you
Well,
know.
can you imagine like as a soldier, and you don't know any different, but like
No.
writing a letter home, and as a parent or a brother or sister or a friend getting,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's been like you receive the letter, you have just no comprehension of where the person's been, and
Yeah.
it's months literally from when it was
Yeah.
written. Like
Yeah. If it even got to you at all,
right.
I mean, one of the big issues, there's a movie out, it's a U.S. movie, and it's about the women who were in the Postal Corps.
That's a great movie.
It is. It's tremendous.
I
But
can't
it's
remember the name of
really,
it.
Yeah.
But
Nine,
how
nine,
they
company nine. Oh, I can't remember.
something
Yeah.
like that. But it was like
Yeah.
it was a story that you kind of knew nothing about from the war, and yet you could say, of course, it had to happen like that.
Yeah. And now it's interesting. Things have come so far. We're talking at this point in time of getting rid of the Canada Post.
Yeah, no, it's
Not that I disagree with that,
right.
but time has taken over, and this, you know, everybody depended on telegraphs and mail,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's pretty much
It's not like that anymore.
almost, well, we don't have telegraphs, we have email. Everything's email, and we don't think twice about it.
So it's
But
interesting when you bring up Canada Post because when we moved out here, it was the first time I think, other than when we first got married, that we have a door-to-door delivery of mail here.
yeah, we don't.
We haven't had that like, oh my goodness, 30 plus years. Like we've always
Yeah,
had it. So it was kind of like an interesting thing. Like there's a person delivering our mail every day.
yeah,
No
absolutely.
idea.
Yeah,
So it's
but
it's very regional, as I
yeah,
understand, right? As far as
like
kind of how it
we
goes.
haven't had direct mail delivery here. Oh gosh, how many?
Very
It's
long
got to be
time.
at least 15 years, 10,
Yeah.
15 years,
I'll
something
bet
like
it's
that.
longer than that. I'll bet it's longer than
Yeah,
that.
like we have a mailbox, community mailbox. But in all fairness, when I first moved to Ottawa, it was similar.
Hmm.
We lived in a high rise, and there was a mail room where you
Yes.
had your
Yes.
mailbox.
Well, same
So
thing.
that was, yeah, same idea,
Absolutely.
you know. Yeah, nobody delivered it directly to your door. So things go around changing. But when you think back and just how long people had to go without knowing
I I would
what,
think that
yeah,
was astounding. Like I just like I think of like the hearts of mothers and fathers. And it
oh,
was a different time. But here
yeah,
you've got your eldest or your next eldest and they're going off to fight this war. And you really like we have so many different sides today, Bob, like from sources of information from like
mhm.
where we can go on the internet, the newspapers, the
Oh,
TV, like YouTube. It's just astounding how many different views we can get.
oh,
And
absolutely.
they just wouldn't have had that, right? Like
Well, and think back at the reverse of it. Your great grandfather,
yeah,
okay? He's in France. He's recovering from a gunshot wound.
yeah.
He gets a letter. Your wife died, and your 5 kids are in an orphanage.
That's unimaginable, actually, Bob, for me. Like I just it's like but that would be
That
reality,
was
right?
reality.
Yeah.
That was reality, you know. And it a lot of people don't know that, and it's kind of it's unfortunate, but in some ways we should be thankful for
Oh, hugely.
a lot of the stuff that we do have.
Do you know
In
what's
fact,
really
we complain.
what's interesting with what you just said was and we can't help ourselves, but we put it into today's context,
Yeah,
such a thing, which is it's really it's an unfair thing to do because it's
yeah,
just so different, right? Like it's just
yeah,
on every almost every level.
yeah.
And it's one of the and this would be like something like when that happened, Bob, he had been overseas for 18 months.
He would have been overseas. I think he went over in 15, so it would have been at least 2 years.
Like even that to be away from your family
Yeah,
in a like foreign like you would never at that time the majority of people would never do a vacation like in that sense like
no,
you would just have
vacation
no
was not. No, wasn't
it's
in the vocabulary.
it's
Really.
almost like unfathomable and that's why I said sometimes I think it's really unfair in our world today that we try to put that into context that we understand and it's almost
Yeah.
impossible like that's
Well, the
before
problem.
television right like
Yeah,
I mean that's before radio I think too
yeah,
isn't it
yeah. And the
oh my goodness
interesting fact is that during World War One, World War Two, they didn't repatriate any of the um, those who died. They were buried at the battlefields,
Mm.
and they have huge cemeteries throughout World War One, World War Two, big memorials, and just walking through those. I remember on some days I would go through early in the morning. Sometimes I'd be getting up early to because we had the time difference and trying
Yes.
to
Yeah.
broadcast stuff back over to Canada. I'd get up early and sometimes just at dawn, walking through some of those
Oh my
cemeteries, it
goodness.
just blow you away. And these poor bugger, known unto God, which meant that was unknown soldier. Didn't know his name, and just amazing, really,
Well,
when you think about it.
I was fortunate during some business a few years ago. Like I visited a couple of the American cemeteries near Luxembourg,
Yeah,
and what was like I think one of them had MacArthur was born is
yeah,
born there is buried there, but because he wanted to be buried with his men, right?
yeah.
And one of the things to me that was so amazing is the geometric formation of
Oh,
in whatever direction you look across these cemetery crosses,
mm.
they're in line.
Oh, they are. That was so obvious when I was at the cemetery in Normandy, the U.S. cemetery there. It's just unbelievable. But in all fairness, um, we fought. You've heard about the Commonwealth. Well, the Commonwealth during World War One and World War Two, it was the Commonwealth War Graves Commission that was responsible for the burial of all Canadians,
Oh, okay.
British, Australians, anybody from the Commonwealth who fought in the war and was killed. They looked after their grave, and they do to this very day. And if you've ever seen the manuals that they have exact millimeters, inches of where the headstone has to be away from the grass.
Oh, wow.
They have all of this, and it's all laid out. And they have huge, or they not huge, but they're almost like little chapels where they have the books, and you can go in and look and find the actual grave and go along it and stuff like that. But now with electronic means, that was one that I mentioned in the last. That was one of my goals was to get the Canadian portion of that of the where the bodies are buried on our website. So it's
Okay.
there. And so if people do have somebody, and if you take a look and you go up onto veterans.gc.ca or veterans.ca, I forget how they did that, no, but just look under remembrance, and you can do a search for Robert Pegg, and his name will be there. And he's also honored in what's called the Books of Remembrance. There's 8 books of remembrance in the Houses of Parliament in
Oh,
Canada,
wow.
which are hand
Written.
calligraphy, handwritten names that are there, and you can actually go in, take a look at it, tell you. And then what we've added to that database is the ability for you or any of your family members to put significant information up there. So if you had pictures of him before he was
Oh,
died,
wow.
or they will be posted in along with his other details of his death. So it's quite amazing. We do a lot. A lot of people don't realize exactly what we've done.
No.
I'm using
Yes.
colloquially, but um, that was it developed into something much more significant than we really had even thought at the time when we started moving these things over. It took on a life of its own. And the same with, we've done the same with Veterans Remember, because we're not finished with veterans of World War II and Korea and the whole bit.
Yeah. No.
That's still going on. And it's when we have our troops that are killed overseas, they are honored in the same way that those from World War II, World War One, Korea are honored as well. So
So we'll post that site that you're talking about. We're going to
yeah,
post that in the blurb with the podcast,
give
so
me
people
2
can actually
seconds.
go there.
Yeah, I'll
Well,
give it to you as
I'll
soon as.
get it after we're done. But I was going
Yeah.
to say it'd be good to get, like, it gives someone a place to go and they can start to investigate a little bit
Oh,
for what's there.
amazing.
Because what I would
Yeah.
like to now kind of go is, how did you get involved with this? And I'll say in particular I think it was the 60th anniversary of Juno.
The
I could
60th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Yeah. So how did you start to get so, like, with the website and things like that, interviewing veterans, talking, how did you start to
Well,
say, I like this?
once we determined what could be done with the website in the areas of remembrance,
Okay.
um, we said, well, we could add this to it. It
Yeah.
became more of a living item
Right.
than what you would read in the newspaper
Yep.
a week or 2 weeks whenever the Globe and Mail got around to write it. Now the traditional media have always done a wonderful job
Right.
of keeping us up on what happens, and they would also send reporters over when we did overseas events, and so they would ship this information back, and it was great. But we could actually put as much more up there
Oh yeah.
than we could in traditional ways
Because
back then.
you're not really doing news here. This is trying to capture an event forever,
It
right?
is news in the sense it was news to a lot of veterans because they were happy. What we could do, let's say you had your grandfather was on one of those, just for heck of it, we would actually post information that he would provide, and you could read it that night online. Some information
That's
about
cool.
his experience of going back to the battlefields or what have you. So it became the whole we take the web so much for granted now, or the internet,
Yes.
because so we expect everything to be instantaneous. Well, it wasn't.
No.
We were one of the first websites to actually use databases. So
Interesting.
we had a database of over 110,000 names that we had gotten from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and we put that up in the searchable form. That wasn't done automatically. Okay, we had to work at that.
Yeah.
We had the programs had to be developed. The programming had to be done. It had to be all the stuff that now is blows me away what we can do.
Oh me. Yeah.
And we were one of the first government websites to start using video and audio. So we would actually do video on site and send it back to our website in Canada
Oh
and
yeah.
update it. We would go out to ceremonies. I would take a camera, video camera, take the whole thing. And at that time, it was all done over a telephone modem. And in Europe, a lot of times they didn't even have the telephone capability to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were kind of at the start on the cutting edge of this stuff. And we had great support from our senior levels. And they said, well, you've got to go over to these because you're the one that knows how to do it. And not only me, but the rest of my team. So we would take turns
Oh,
and we
okay.
would go to different. For instance, I think one of the first ones that I went to was the Korean War. I actually was
Oh
in
wow.
Panmunjom. I don't know if you know where that is,
Well, I
but
don't
it's
exactly,
between,
but I've seen the Pacific. I don't know whether you've
yeah,
seen that series, right?
yeah.
That's I think based off of what's his name, Stephen Ambrose. I think it might be his son that worked on this one,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that's a tough one to watch actually
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's brutal. But I didn't know that you went to Korea, so that's
Oh,
interesting.
I've been in South and actually in North Korea,
Okay.
because in Panmunjom, there's no war treaty between North and South um,
Korea.
Korea.
Okay.
All there is that exists to this very day uh, is an armistice agreement. So the places where that was negotiated and finally signed are interesting blue buildings in a demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. So I got a tour to go through that, and along with a bunch of others. In fact, the Americans look after a lot of it, and the American senior officer at the time when we were over there, and we had a contingent of about 20 Korean veterans.
Oh,
So he very nicely, and an interesting story. This is a side story.
no, this is cool.
But one of the things that they still do to this very day is they find the bodies or the remains of people of soldiers who were killed over, predominantly American, but there have been some Canadians and other United Nation countries who have lost. And in fact, I think when I was at that time, the Americans the North Koreans had paid him $1 million for each body that they found that would be still in caves and whatnot.
Really?
Yeah. So what they would do is they would take, and there would be a ceremony between North and South Korea, and they would pass those bodies over. They would go immediately onto an airplane to a forensics lab in Hawaii, and they would start the forensic investigation of trying to find who this particular individual was, and then give
Wow.
them. Well, we still do it. You've seen it in the paper, I'm sure, where they find World War One bodies, and they bring
Amazing.
them back to Canada. And they just recently found one, and they were able to trace their DNA back a number of years ago when I was
I
doing it.
didn't know this was going on, but
Oh yeah,
I'm also so
but in
you used the
in
term.
Korea, in
Yeah.
northern Korea, they passed the body over, but the commander in Korea of the American forces who's looking after this, the American end or the United Nations end of the part of the um, buildings and whatnot. He very nicely came up to us and asked, he said, would your veterans like to participate in moving in taking the caskets over?
Oh wow.
And it was fantastic. These guys were just blown away.
I'll bet they were.
I can remember at the complex, and there's two great, huge cement buildings. One's owned by the North Korea, other South Korea. And I was up there with binoculars looking across, and all of a sudden I zeroed in on this North Korean who was looking me dead in the eye through the eyeglasses. There's still a lot of animosity, and it's funny because on these buildings there's about, I don't know, half a dozen or more, and one half is patrolled by the South Koreans, the other half is patrolled by the North Koreans. They come up to the corner of a building, and let's say that's the corner.
Yeah.
They put one eye looking directly at the building and another eye right down the building. And this is part of their procedure for ensuring that nobody jumps across or whatever.
Wow.
And when I was going,
what city are you in when you're?
Panmunjom.
Okay, that's what you started with. Okay, so this is all
Yeah.
taking place there.
This is in the demilitarized zone that's between North Korea and South Korea.
Wow.
So when I was in there, and I'm just realized now, and thank God I put my foot across and put my toe in North Korea. Didn't realize until I got into the building I could have been shot. But the point of the matter is, that was when the animosity wasn't too
Yes.
strong at the time.
Yep.
But there has been a number of situations.
So were you uncomfortable while you were there? Like, did you feel on guard? because of that situation, or like you were there for work
I
and you were
wasn't
trying to get the stuff done?
uncomfortable, but I knew what could potentially happen
Okay.
because the American forces that look after their station there can be at the ready within 30 seconds for any major outbreak of anything. But up there, it's all a propaganda war between North and South Korea.
Yeah.
For instance, they have a whole fake township on the North Korean side with a huge, huge North Korean flag that has to be taken down every time it rains because it would get wet, it would break the pole. That's how heavy it would get. But
That's a
for
story.
24 hours a day,
Wow.
they pump music over. And they really take this propaganda seriously
Oh
because
yeah.
the South Koreans do it as well. But what they do is they try to intimidate. So
Yeah.
you will find now Asian people generally aren't tall. Well, I have met the tallest Korean people I have ever seen in my life,
Interesting.
and they're well over 6 feet tall, and
Oh
they
wow.
put them right on the line. So it's an intimidation thing.
Interesting.
But you do get to see some differences between the two countries because South Korea is so very much advanced with technology and everything. They still, while it's still a demilitarized zone, they still farm rice.
Oh,
And the
okay.
South Koreans use technical factors, everything. Whereas a lot of back then, the North Koreans were doing it by hand and by animals and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay.
So you got to see stuff. I went from one end of the top of South Korea right down to Busan, there, one of their major. So it was quite, yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot,
Did
but
you
I
get a
was doing,
Did you get a chance to kind of go through some of the areas where war was had?
yes,
Like you did
yes,
see like similar to what you did on the beach.
yeah, but
And
it was a different type of war. And
hmm
it was, there was a lot of cave war. There were battles, various. It wasn't quite as big and as extensive as what had happened in World War II and in World War One,
mm,
for that matter. But you did get to see some of it, and South Koreans were tremendous people, and so oh, they love Canadians, they love Americans, they really appreciate the culture and the society they have. Although they would like at some point in time to have better ties with the North Koreans,
mm.
but that's a whole political
That's
thing,
a whole nother
and that's
story.
a whole other story. But going through there and being with our veterans from that war, when they got to transfer those bodies
Oh yeah.
across the line, and then they were immediately they put them in. I think they're blue caskets.
Oh, really?
Remember, yeah. Anyway, and then and they're handed across. North Korean veterans hand them over to South Korean veterans, and they take them, and they're immediately put on a plane and sent to, or that was then. I don't know what goes on
So
now.
so you must have felt like you were in a pretty special place getting to
Oh,
witness that too, right?
absolutely, absolutely,
Wow.
and to learn this stuff and to see. It's funny when you leave. What's the capital city of South Korea?
Seoul?
Not to. You know, I can't.
Where's Seoul? Like that's the
That's it.
okay, that's
When
South.
you leave Seoul and start moving, heading further north,
Okay.
the in battlements get heavier and heavier and heavier because there's a main river there, and there have been people that have tried to cross it. They just killed them. shoot
Wow.
them. And they're all machine gun towers and stuff like that.
You know,
It's a real eye opener.
it's interesting as we kind of going through this because there's four theaters of war for World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this
And
is Korea, so it's not part of World War II.
and
This
it
happened in 1950.
56 or something, but it was interesting because I read Victor Davis Hanson's book called The Second World Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pluralized because he had apparently four uncles, and each one of them fought in different parts of the Second World War, and their
Theaters, different
experience,
theaters. Yeah.
yeah, and their experiences were so different.
Yep.
And so, like when as you correctly identified, this Korean War wasn't part of the Second World War,
No.
but as you describe it, it's such a different territory.
Oh,
Like you mentioned, like cave warfare, and when in watching again, I'm seeing this through movie, and that is the Pacific series. And like it was just a completely different terrain than something like watching the Band of Brothers, which is the European theater.
yep. Mm-hmm.
And it was like just what was going on at that period of time. And then you getting a chance to go years later after these things
Oh,
had kind of gone on.
such
And
an honor for
I
me.
was going to say, like, how it must have felt kind of special because you're trying to bring this to Canada too, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's
And
going
we were
on?
bringing it, so we would go to these ceremonies um, and then go back and write them up, take our pictures, take our videos, interviews, whatever it was, and we'd ship them back over telephone lines and update the server so that the people in Canada were getting it almost at the same time that somebody in Korea was
Just
getting it.
kidding. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was quite interesting. We did the same. I was fortunate to do the same going up through the boot in Italy.
Oh,
I
really?
was at yeah, I went all the way up from Sicily with the commemorative group.
Oh, okay.
It was actually we actually went and had ceremonies done where the invasion took place in Sicily of the um, American and British troops, and they went up. And the history there's a ton of history about it, but the mafia they were significant help to the Allies going
Interesting.
up through Sicily.
Really?
Yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we went up through and some of the stories in Italy. I remember the story of Ortona, which was a major Battle of Ortona, where a lot of Canadians were killed. But they had a very interesting, when they got to Ortona, the Germans, they were moving out. The Italians never were as committed. The Italian troops were never as committed as the Germans. Mostly the Germans were backing up. And the interesting part about Ortona, it's right on the Mediterranean coast. And we were there for the 60th, and now it's a resort area. And guess who goes to that resort area? Predominantly Brits and Germans.
Of course.
Uh, so
Oh
anyway,
my goodness, man. Nothing
um,
is what it seems. It is
no,
kind of
but
how it
down in
went.
Ortona, it was quite interesting because that was a terrible battle. They bombarded the city. There was a lot of debris and everything. And then they had some real issues with German snipers. They couldn't go up the main street because the snipers were in any high building, church,
Mm,
whatever it be,
yep.
and you were shot. You know, so the only way they could get through was to do what they called mouse holing. Have you ever heard of that?
No, no, like go on.
If you've been to a lot of parts of Europe, you'll see that most houses share a wall, right?
Okay, okay.
Okay. So what they would do, what the Canadians developed, was this mouse holing. So they would go into a building, and since they couldn't walk the streets, they would throw a grenade in and blow a hole, and it would blow a hole in the wall in the next building. So they'd progress up the street
Oh, okay.
until they could come to the snipers.
No, I've never heard this before.
And that's called mouse holing. And I spoke to
Wow.
one veteran who told me he says it's still one of the scariest times in my life.
Oh, I'll bet. Oh,
We had gone into a building, he said, and I had my grenade out, and I was back ready to pitch it. When you pitch a grenade, the lever flies off, and then 7-10 seconds later, it blows up. He was just back like this, and he could hear this noise in one of the rooms.
Oh,
And he didn't know what it was. So he said to his comrade, wait, hold on to your grenade. Sorry. He goes up, and looks in the room. Here's a little girl and a little boy.
oh, wow.
That were still in the house. He said, if I had let that grenade go,
They were gone.
it would have killed them.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know they were there. Anyway,
these are those are stories, Bob. When you say that it's like this is like that's so human, and it's so like you said. There's probably thousands of those stories, right?
He's still awake. He's passed away now, God rest his soul. But he would wake up for years and years, even to the very day he told me. I would wake up in a nightmare.
Oh.
And my mind would say, what would happen if I couldn't have got to those kids? And there's a lot of kids that didn't get.
Oh yeah.
Nobody got to.
Absolutely. Well, no, it is
So
like those are what they make movies out of, right? Those are the stories that like really take us to the human part of it. Like, and that's when when I was asking you about how you felt when you were going across the beach, and like you're on low tide, so you're not even going through the waiting water, but like the like a person who was there, like those would be, I would think, triggers for what they went through. And just like,
well, you got to the beach.
Unbelievable, man.
If you got to the beach, you were lucky.
Yes.
You didn't drown and you didn't get shot. But
like
then
this was
had,
that's the part of the movie to me that's so astounding, right? Like from the time the door falls into the ocean and your first guys are all gone down and they're going through the water, like getting to the beach, like you've kind of hardly started your journey, right?
Well, that's right.
Oh my goodness.
Unmanned. And everybody's sick, seasick. There's a ton of things.
And terrified, right? How we act when we're terrified is quite different from how we even expect to act, I think.
Yeah.
Generally, right?
Yeah.
And
there's so many interesting stories. I went to Monte Cassino, beautiful, beautiful town in Italy, close to Rome, almost near Anwar, or where the Americans went in to take over Rome. But anyway, the people in that city despised not just the Germans, they despised the Allies. Because they were very, very proud of their beautiful city. It was a Monte Cassino. It was a cathedral type monk monastery at the top of a hill, centuries old. And it was one of the hardest decisions that the Allies had to make. They couldn't take that city unless they bombed it to pieces.
Yep. Nope.
No. So when it comes to war, we really don't understand it unless you've actually been in those situations and seen it.
Yes.
But it was gorgeous, glorious.
But they had, like you said, they had renewed it since in the 60 years into this beautiful city, right?
They had to rebuild the whole thing, but it was never the same because throughout Italy are these small little towns that had beautiful, beautiful mountaintop um, buildings and
Villas and things like
monasteries.
that.
They're centuries old, and just the destruction
Yeah.
that had occurred. So,
That history's
yeah,
gone.
it is in a way. Yeah, yeah.
So
That's why we have to be careful of our history.
when you were doing this, Bob, like did you kind of feel like, wow, this is a pretty special privilege I've got to do these
Oh,
tours?
absolutely.
Like you must have been
Yeah.
kind of like,
Well, see,
what happened?
what happened was because I had done a number of these. Um, they used to call them pilgrimages or
Good word.
missions over. Yeah, I had some inkling and idea of what. When I was working as a project manager on the 60th anniversary, I was not doing web work at all. I was actually getting the ceremonies in place, working with DND, getting the soldiers, getting the bands, getting the support groups from our, and the doctors, because when we went over with a contingent of veterans, we had a full medical staff, full, it was, so there was a lot of logistics that had to
Oh
be
yeah.
worked through. And that was one of my, in fact, when we went to D Day, that was the first D Day that they had all the world leaders from the
Amazing.
Allies that came together, including George Bush. And they just basically sectioned off all of Normandy from Caen right up to the water. It was just a not a demilitarized zone, but a terrorist free zone. It
Wow.
was run, just the bureaucracy of working. We had to get special passes for all the veterans that were coming over. We had to make sure they got them. There was special requirements on who could travel. I was one of the few people that could actually travel within this section during the ceremonies
Oh man. Like
because yeah. So there was a lot of logistics and a lot of, wow. Hey, it's all stories within themselves. And in Juno Beach, the work we did on that. Whoa.
so
Anyway,
did you walk right on Juno Beach?
oh, absolutely. I walked on Juno Beach hundreds of times.
Really?
Well, we had to. We actually had a site there where we took we there wasn't just our veterans that Veterans Affairs had taken over. A lot of veterans went back on their own.
Oh, they
So we
did.
had
Oh,
we had
of
a,
course,
yeah
of
we had
course.
reception centers, processing centers, a whole bunch of different things that we had to set up for because every country, Britain, United States, Canada, Australia, all of them that had troops all had their own ceremonies, their own
Amazing.
veterans there. It was, I actually was, oh, within 50 feet of the Queen on D Day.
Wow. That's
And it was, yeah, it was quite amazing. And at one point, once the ceremonies were undergoing, there was lots of people. I walked away just to go, and it was back in time when I was smoking. So I went out to catch smoke. I was smoking and walking up the street. Who drives by me? The Queen Elizabeth II waves. I was the only person on the street.
so you were waved to by the late Queen Elizabeth. Wow.
Yeah.
So of that time and experience, you had like there's so many things like it's probably hard to pick, but was there a memorable conversation that you had like with a veteran or with someone that had been there that that you recall that like kind of touched you as far as
I
wow,
had so
this is
many of
crazy.
these,
I can
Doug.
imagine
I just, because we would ride to all of these ceremonies, everything, with the veterans
all
themselves.
the time.
So you'd be sitting beside a veteran and you go, oh, well, yeah. He'd tell you a story, he'd relate. Oh, over there? Yeah, that's Bayou. We went to party there after D-Day. All of this stuff. Oh, yeah, they were fabulous because they loved to share.
Oh
They
my
shared their
goodness, man.
experiences. But one of the greatest, I don't want to, I'm not sure how we're doing time, but I don't want to run out of it. I want to talk to you. I mentioned it earlier to you. It's called about one of the things we did on the 60th was what's called the Aboriginal Spiritual Journey. And you've got to understand, well, your daughter works closely with them,
Yes.
so.
Yep.
And this wasn't the chiefs of First Nations or Métis or Inuit. These were the spiritual leaders. And it wasn't me that started it. It was a lot of negotiations between various people in government. But one of the traditions within the Aboriginal community is they want to take the spirits of their lost ones back to their homelands. So we put together with them a spiritual journey where we went around Europe and we had ceremonies, and then the spiritual leaders would go back weeks later to their communities, and they would have a reversed journey or a reverse ceremony to drop off the spirits and bring them home.
Oh, wow.
And there were some, I'm not a spiritual person, but I'll tell you, I had my eyes opened by.
I'll bet.
To do
Yes.
this, we had to actually build a lodge in Europe and a sweat lodge,
Okay.
and a big communal lodge. And so we had to go over. We went over with. There was an spiritual elder named Clarence Wolfleg. He's a wonderful guy. Clarence Wolfleg. I believe he lives in Alberta.
Okay.
And he's part of the Cree Blackfoot
Cool.
reservation, and we got along just phenomenally. He was such a nice guy, and he had relatives that had killed. See, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize with the Aboriginals is part of their right to manhood is to become warriors.
Mm.
So that's why a lot will join the forces. Okay. And
Really?
men, yes, because it's part of their right of
Ref. I was going to say.
the movement forward.
Yep.
And the interesting part about it is we always think about the East-West connection here. In the Aboriginal community, it's north-south.
Okay.
So the border makes a big issue of things, but it never used to, but I think it's getting to be
more difficult.
Yeah. But one of the things that's happened with the Aboriginal community is that they've become more spiritually aware, and they do a lot of ceremony and help to their younger people through the elders, and because one of the things that not a lot of what the various tribes do, the First Nations, is written down anymore. That was one of the big issues with the residential schools. They tell their history and their culture around a fire. They talk.
Right.
But they didn't have writing in the same way that Europeans did.
Right.
So it became quite difficult. We went through a period with residential schools where we basically cut that off. They didn't have the family ties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of other bad things that were done to the Aboriginal community through residential schools. Don't get me wrong. But this discontinuance of their understanding of culture, we don't realize it because we go back to those history books that we talk about, all that. We've got it all written down. We've got it up, it's on film. It's a lot of their traditions, a lot of their culture was by word of mouth. So for a period of time when the Aboriginal community was going through and it's still going through difficult times, with drug addiction, with problems
Oh,
with
yeah.
you. Well, your daughter knows
It's
fully well.
it's often overwhelming, Bob.
It
It's
is
just
really overwhelming.
we just yeah, it's that I've actually had Jenny Shantz on here, who's the founder of Inner Hope, and she takes boots on the ground, I call it, because this isn't about funding and all this. It's about being like there with the people that are helping and understanding their culture, and giving them like a way to figure out how to live within this world, not just throwing money at it.
No,
And
and I had a friend, Ed Borchert,
okay,
and he's Métis,
yeah,
and he was president of the Métis Association.
cool.
He retired as a major from the Canadian Forces,
Oh
but he went back to
wow.
Alberta, and he worked with them. And he used to talk to me. He said one of my most difficult things, and he's an elder,
Hmm.
uh, spelled a spiritual leader in a way. He said is to get rid of our victim mentality. Before
Interesting.
you can heal, you have to get rid of your
Yeah.
victim mentality. And that is a long and slow process.
Oh my goodness,
But
man.
it's only you as a Aboriginal that can do it. That's your first
Interesting.
step.
Interesting. Eh?
Yeah.
How
And
did you get to
yes,
know him?
he he came in, and one of the big problems government is always looked at as being telling them what to do. That
Hmm.
was not the approach we used on the Aboriginal spiritual journey.
Okay.
We worked with people and we said to them, you tell us what you need. We have the benefit of the government, and we have the benefit of our Canadian forces. So you send us the experts, who Ed Borchert was,
Oh,
and you
okay.
tell us what you need, and we'll facilitate your getting there. So he came over with a whole Métis First Nation crew, along with Inuit and so forth. And that's where we learned to build sweat lodges, how to build
Ah.
the huge community lodge that they would have ceremony in. And we actually brought um, long, slim pieces, there's the word for it. They put them in teepees, all the lodges. We actually had the Canadian forces agreed, take all of this over from Canada.
Wow.
There were ash elms and that, oh, I can't remember all of them now.
Didn't know anything about this.
I had a chance to meet so many wonderful, wonderful Aboriginal people.
Cool.
It just blew my mind. And I've never learned so much. Anyway, when I was back with Clarence Wolflag, we went on our preliminary tour, our recce, as it's called in military terms, which is reconnaissance. So
Okay.
we went over, Clarence Wolflag was with us. So we had to scout out sites. So we went to France, Belgium, um, um, Italy, you name it, to find a spot that they
Oh, okay.
felt encompassed the Aboriginal knowledge and spirit. We ended up choosing, it was funny, and it was on top of a um, Cold War bunker that was made. There was a beautiful preserved land. It was all in their native
Oh,
woods.
wow.
And so we went through this. We went through a number of places, and we got their opinion. Where would be the best place to put these lodges, to have the ceremonies, to have all of these people come to it? And so Clarence and others said, "This is the place," and it was in Belgium, and it was
Oh,
actually in a wildlife preserve. And I said to you that I'm not a big spiritual
yes. Yeah.
person, but once we had agreed to do this, and Ed was there with his crew building all of this out of native supplies and native material. Um, I would look up and actually see a deer coming down from the hills to the natives.
How cool is that?
And he told me about where he got the inspiration was from a red eagle that landed on a fence post.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, unbelievable.
That is well. It's so interesting, Bob, how you bring this up because you used a term, I think, repatriate, earlier on, and my understanding that is when the fallen soldier's body is brought back to the country he's from. Is that what when you said repatriating? Is that what that meant?
That's we're in Vietnam War. They repatriated the bodies. They
Is it
put them in body bags and took them back.
it?
During
Okay,
World War One and during World War
they
Two,
didn't
they
do that,
didn't do that because it was logistically impossible.
right?
Okay, so
So
they actually buried them in the cemeteries. So the cemeteries were made for that. Right? And a
well,
lot of Aboriginals are buried there. But again, it's another level on top. With the Aboriginals, it's not just the physical remains,
right.
it's the spirit of the warrior
Well,
that doesn't come home.
it's
And so
interesting.
this is, I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting when you bring this out because this is I'll call this kind of gets into the metaphysical world, but it's interesting how you got a chance to be exposed to this and how important it was to bring the spirit of the warrior back to their home.
Yeah,
And in sensing that, it's like I kind of, and this is where I kind of get this science spirit thing kind of put together because what we're made of comes out of the earth. Everything that we're
yeah,
made of comes out of the earth physically.
yes.
But there's something inside us, and we it comes into us the moment we're conceived that starts to bring all these material things from the earth into us to make us and grow us. Well, first of all, to be born and then grow us into where we are today until we die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. And when we die, whatever that thing is leaves us, and we're just left to be
Some
materials
people
of the
call
earth.
it a soul.
Yeah,
Some
absolutely.
people call it individual energy. I don't know what it is. I understand what you're talking about.
And it's interesting that you experience that with the indigenous group that you're with, that that's what they were taking. Like, it's like sometimes we're a lot more similar than we think we are with
Well,
all our other
absolutely.
humans.
One of the biggest problems is we've lost sight of a lot of that because we've become so involved in technology.
Yeah,
Technology is our God, and we don't see it. I mean, technology works everywhere. It's not just.
sure.
But I think it's when you deal with Aboriginal people and you listen to people who I listened to Senator Murray before he
Hmm.
died. He
Right.
talked about the residential schools, and it was really heartwarming to hear. I mean, it was scary. It just when I look back at my life, we never knew. I didn't know anything
No, absolutely.
about Aboriginal life.
No,
It
no,
was never part of our school curriculum,
no.
and I feel today so neglected for that.
It's
And
one.
but it, yeah, sorry.
Well, it was. I'll go back to one of the stories we were talking about earlier on, and this was. I was coming out of the Band of Brothers. I always use movies for my
Mhm.
historical
I
context,
know.
but they had come out. I think they'd come out of the Eagle's Nest, and they were going into the forest. And one of the young privates discovered a concentration camp. That was the first time they'd seen it, as I understand history, and they had heard about them, but no one had actually witnessed them. And they kind of came back and they just couldn't believe it. But they went into in the show, they went into this local town. And the soldiers were quite upset with the town folk
The German
because
town folk, yeah.
they said you knew this was here and you didn't do anything about it. And it's so easy to sit here and judge those things, right?
Absolutely.
But it's like what you were saying about we grow up and like we really weren't exposed at all to this residential
No,
school system at all. Like I mean, it's not something that comes back that this was actually, and the fact I don't even think we quite understood what was actually going on by and
Well, I
large.
didn't until recently during some of the discussions about reconciliation where I
You're right.
really started to understand what this was about.
And this
You
is
know,
kind of part of what, like, I say often, is nothing is what it seems here. Like, it's kind of here
exactly.
I'm a citizen of Canada and I didn't even know this was going on under my own nose.
Absolutely.
And it's just, and that's why I go back to the Band of Brothers scene, because it's like like what would, and then you kind of go and put yourself in the situation and go, well, what would you have done if you'd known that was going on? Like,
Well, it was going on. It was the residential schools.
absolutely.
Pretty much every province in Canada undertook that.
It was across Canada for sure.
Yeah.
So what's so interesting to me, and this is to me, I'm hoping this is helpful for people, is that you got to witness something that I don't even think most of us even knew about, in this idea of indigenous soldiers and bringing their warrior spirit back to the land that they came from. Like, to me, that, like, that's sheds light on another piece of our history that we just don't even grasp.
No, we don't, and we're just starting to. Do you
Yeah.
know what? I'm going to add a little levity here. Do you know what a bundle is?
Do I know what a what?
A bundle
A
is.
bundle. Isn't that what the cable companies sell us for our different channels that we get? They give bundles to us.
Yes, but
That's
in
the way
the
you're talking
current
about.
with Aboriginals,
Don't know.
spiritual leaders
Yes.
all have what they call bundles,
Okay.
which are made up of artifacts thousands of years old
Oh
that they
wow.
use in their spiritual ceremonies. And
Wow.
these bundles are sacrosanct.
I'll bet.
Only certain people are allowed to open them, and that's the elder.
Okay.
Well, we're doing the Aboriginal spiritual journey. We have got to take all of the First Nations and some of the Iqaluit and some of the others mixtures and make sure that their bundles get to Europe
Oh wow.
without being touched by white people.
That would be a whole nother challenge in our world.
So it was with the help of Ed Borscht and a number of others that we were able to devise a way in which to do that. Ed was coming over and he was taking his bundle with him, and we had to land in Heathrow. He was coming from Calgary, I was coming from Halifax. I got into Heathrow before he did. Now, all of the Westerners, Ed included, used to wear black hats. They cowboy hats. That's the way
Mm-hmm.
everybody wears
Mm-hmm.
cowboy hats. So I said, well, you get there, and before you go through customs, I'll see you and I'll accompany you, and I'll explain to the custom officer what these are. And we've already done this with written letters to the various countries explaining this. And then, but under no circumstances can your officers touch this. We'll guarantee that there's no drugs in it, none of this
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? But you cannot touch it because it may take 1,000 years for it to get back to the point of being a bundle,
Yep.
a sacred bundle again.
Got it.
Okay? The minute you open that, you've just blown our whole ceremony out the window.
Oh my goodness. So these are some tense moments for you in this trip.
So we're in Heathrow.
Oh,
I'm looking around for this group of guys with black cowboy hats.
oh man.
What lands? A plane load of Hasidic Jews. Do you know what Hasidic Jews wear? Black hats.
Mm.
I'm looking over this. Have you ever been to Heathrow Airport?
Oh
It's just
my.
to see
Oh
a sea of people,
yeah.
all and here a whole group of them. Honestly, Lord, I was there. Oh my God, how am I going to get? Where are we going to? Where is Ed?
How
How's
am I
he
gonna
home?
find them? You're
Oh,
like it's Where Waldo story.
yeah. Anyway, I'm standing there, tapping the shoulder. Hi, Bob. Ed,
Oh,
you're
he
here.
he found you.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah, I
cool.
got through it. Yeah, no problem. And,
Wow.
it was amazing. Just
So you
amazing.
got obviously you got through customs,
We got through
but
customs.
that would have been a special thing.
We never had an issue. This is interesting.
Okay.
Never had an issue with foreign customs.
Only
Oh
our
yeah,
own country.
that makes sense. Okay, good. Yeah, we've heard of Aboriginals. Yeah, that makes fun. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Canada? Oh, pain in the ass. But
Oh
you
my
see, they've
goodness.
got it. I don't know what they're doing now because the Cree and the Blackfoot spend a lot of time going between U.S. and Canada.
Mm.
I don't know what they do at the border now. I don't know how if that's still an issue for them, because I hate to say it, but the Americans and the Canadians are becoming more knowledgeable and more, I don't know what the word be, accepting
Mm.
of what this is about. But they said that they have the same issue down in the States, but they're not quite as educated about it in a lot of areas. So I don't know what they do. I haven't had a chance to, talk to any of them, but
Well, it's interesting becoming aware of these things to me. That's the part that
yeah,
that then when you have not had any real idea about it, by and large, right?
I never grew up with it. We never had this, I hate to say it, but the issue was, oh, there goes just another drunken Indian. And, that tainted my
Yeah.
perception,
Oh, for sure it did, right? It's
you
just
know,
we have
and it
these.
took me a long while to get away from that prejudice.
It's
Prejudice.
one. It's one of the things that I think is really difficult for us because, and I will often say this now because you see um, homeless individuals um, on the streets, right? And they can be of any culture, ethnicity,
Absolutely.
and it's like you see them, and it's another human being,
It is.
and we tend to forget this because they're not like us, as an example.
No.
And I kind of use this example because I was going to say if a cyber truck drives by somebody, wow, we're amazed by that, or some fancy car, whatever it is. Oh, a building, beautiful architecture. Oh, we're just awed by it. And we forget that a human being so eclipses what we make with our hands as humankind
Yeah.
to be almost stunning.
Yeah.
And yet we'll walk by a person who is not kind of, I'll say, like us, or is struggling, or for whatever reason. And I think because of that, Bob, when you say that, it's like this is why you kind of get these kind of impressions, right? And they start when you're a kid,
Yeah.
and there's no way to really correct them unless you spend time there. And like
Yeah.
our lives are busy. How do you kind of fit that in, right? And then we get into our sense that, well, just money will solve the problem. And it's like, actually, it's not a money problem.
Well, that's certainly the issue. It took a long while for us to understand. There's a lot of our population still need to
Oh,
come to that understanding
yes, absolutely.
that it's not, you know, we, as well, they don't trust us. Well, would you,
No, it
after,
yeah,
what they have done? It's interesting because as part of this, I learned a few things about dealing and negotiating with Aboriginals. It's interesting. First of all, their culture, they don't tend to. We say, look them in the eye and tell them, what this is, that is. No, that's one of their cultural traditions. You don't look. That's not respect. If you look
right.
somebody deadly in the eye, straight in the eye,
Yeah.
you're being disrespectful.
Many cultures have that,
Yeah,
actually.
and we are always in the meeting. I used to be in a meeting. You're meeting with other people, and
Absolutely.
everybody's nodding their head. Oh, well, they accept it. The premise that I'm putting forth, they accept it. That doesn't work in the Aboriginal community
Mm.
because everybody might be nodding their head. There was a couple of occasions when we were doing this where we learned that lesson the hard way.
Ah, yeah.
As we were sitting down, and the guy said, "No, well, I'm just going to take my tribe of people, and I'm just going to discuss with them." So they went in to their discussions, and we were under oh, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. They all agreed to it. They didn't, and the next thing we had to negotiate all over from square one, and with the ceremony happening 2 days from now, with the minister's arrival.
Oh,
So there's a bunch of things that you learn, and you should understand this, but we don't do it enough to really
no.
recognize what we had to do. It's like when I was in Italy and doing
Mm.
Sicily. We were doing ceremonies there, right? We'd have to buy tents, we'd have to get bleachers, we get a whole bunch of things. Well, have you put the 25% aside for the mafia? What? Well, the mafia they
Part
get
of
a
this.
portion of everything that's done in Sicily. Okay.
Interesting.
So it was then that I fell back and started talking to the local Brits who were with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. They said, "Leave it to us. We have an
Ah, okay.
understanding with it." So there's these negotiating tactics that you really don't understand. And I used to be, I'd come back to Canada and they say, "Well, why are you paying for that? Or where's your third bidder on that?"
Yeah.
They don't do that way. What? Oh, well, we can't pay them. All right, you're going to jeopardize the whole bloody
Yeah.
project
There you go.
because your custom isn't the same as theirs.
You
Get
would run
real.
into that a lot in those cross cultural, shall we say, kind of ceremonies that you're putting together, right?
I had a good friend in the Netherlands, and um, he was our helper, and he did it because he had such an admiration for what had happened, what the Canadians did during the Second World War
Mm.
for his people, right? And but they would say to me, "Well, if you're going to get that tent, you got to get 3 bids on it." Right? I would go to one supplier. "Well, have you talked this over with Jan?" I said, "Well, no, John. This is the Canadian government that's buying it." "Oh, you go talk to Jan. We have an arrangement with him." So I go to the next supplier. Same thing. Finally, I got learned, if you want this event to go ahead, you have Jan beside you, and don't try to be doing this stuff yourself. But it's our limited knowledge about how other cultures
Mm.
work.
Yeah.
And this was when I was doing that, this was a good experience in teaching me not every culture does things the same way,
Oh,
even though they come from the same countries. So
and it's a
it was
pretty,
very eye opening.
it's a pretty big thing to recognize to me, and an equally big thing to try and understand how to deal with it. Because like I remember, so this is our daughter Samantha. As part of her school, she had to do 7 months in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
So she's quite young. She's 20 when she did this. And it was when she came back, one of the things that she reflected on, and exactly to your point, she said, we were there for 7 months, and it can easily say, like, oh, okay, it was great to chat. Now I know Thailand. But she said, you barely get a fraction of what the culture is all about. Like even in that, like, yes, you can eat, you got a shelter, you've got a place that you can walk and stuff, but really understanding the, like as you said, customs, procedures.
Yeah.
There, it's she said, and this is why it makes me smile when I hear some say, "Well, yeah, we went to Africa, and now suddenly we're an African expert, and we went for 2 weeks." Right? It's like, yeah, it's like kind of going to Prince Edward Island or Vancouver for a week, and now you know Canada, right? It's like,
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely, Doc. This is the thing, and that's why I'm so glad we had this conversation about the time I spent in doing the 60th anniversary stuff. I mean, dealing with French
Oh,
bureaucracy.
oh, yeah.
You know that, as one of my friends who was born in France says, you know who invented the term bureaucracy? The French. I can remember in a town called Caen in Normandy, and we walked in and it was the gendarmes that were looking after the security for all of the D-Day ceremony. I walked into this room. It was a fog of smoke. Okay. And this is not that long ago. And there's this little Frenchman there with the gendarme hat. No, you can't do that. No. And I said, "Are you going to jeopardize Mr. Bush from coming here to these ceremonies?" No. So those old 40s
Yes,
movies,
we're
when you
accurate.
see that they exist, and those people exist. I mean, we got ourselves around it, and we were nice and understanding. And you can always say, "Well, I'm going to tell my boss, or I'm going to tell the prime minister." No, that doesn't work. You've got to work your way around. So just some of those, and even dealing with the Aboriginal, I have a totally new respect for how they arrive at decisions. And
Interesting.
I wish that we, as the so-called European Canadians,
Yes.
could accept that to some degree. Because not everything is cut and dried, and
Oh,
this is the way it's going to be,
I think it's mind-boggling how much isn't cut and dry that we think is. That's the part
Oh,
that I think is so weird.
but you have
I
to
have
be,
another question, Bob, for you. And this
yeah,
is like with all the experience over there. Did you did you have like um a time when you thought about your dad and what he had gone through? Like
every second day, every second day.
he did, eh? Like can you describe what that was like? Like as far as like like from a timing, because you were pretty young when your dad died.
Yeah.
And but you knew that he had been and done well, you subsequently learned a lot more about that. But what he did with, I think it was at Belsom concentration camp, a few of them,
Burger
right?
Belson, yeah.
And
I
net,
still didn't exactly find out exactly what he had done, but I had more of an appreciation of it. Um, I I
because
guess it was hearing it from somebody else
yes,
made it, and how grateful the people of Burger Belson, the inmates, were for what he had done. To
mm,
list him amongst 200 people in a database of friends of Burger Belson,
interesting.
that's amazing. But I mean, I do remember some of his stories. I remember when they were going through Belgium, and he became very good close friends with this family, he and another guy, and and they would invite him for supper, and he never thought much of it. And one day, my dad always loved dogs. He just really
Oh,
had.
really?
And there used to be a dog there. He'd pet him and other. And one day, they invited him. One weekend, they invited him over to dinner. And the other guy, and they got there. Where's the dog? Hmm? You're having them for supper.
Oh
They
my.
were so proud
Oh
just to be
boy.
able to host these people, but they had nothing. They had no animals.
Oh man.
They had. So it's stories that he would tell me like that. And all of a sudden it
Crazy.
came to you. Wow. Okay. All
One
right.
one experience. No,
Yeah.
I just I thought it was like kind of neat. Like you're here being a major part of putting on this memorial
Yeah,
to what your dad actually experienced
yeah,
in not on the front, so to speak, but
no,
very much the evils, the trauma, the terrible, almost despicable things of war. He was very much part of.
yeah.
Interesting.
But I'll tell you what really that was important. But it was the people.
Mm,
You never really realize how proud you should be to be Canadian until
mm,
you've met somebody and they tell you. I remember a friend of mine, and we were working a ceremony in one of the Dutch villages, and it was the Dutch armed forces were putting on a display and whatnot, and we had seen it before, so we were kind of walking around. And we had a blue blaze, both had blue blazers on. That was kind of the outfit or uniform we wore.
right.
And we had all the veterans are out there and they're watching. So we're walking. This guy comes along. He had tattoos all over. He was about 17 years old. He had a ring in his nose, a couple in his lip, and he just looked, no shirt on. It was a warm day.
Oh,
He
wow.
comes up to us, and I said, nudged her, said, "Be careful. This doesn't look good." He walks up to us and he looks us both in the eye and he says, "Thank you." I
Oh,
said, "What?"
oh.
"Thank you." And turns around, walks away. "Thank you for all you did."
Wow.
I didn't do it. My
That's
dad
pretty
did.
cool, man. That's very
But
cool.
this was a guy, he's your typical adolescent with the
Yeah.
rings and tattoos and all of this, and the attitude exuding all over him, and you're expecting, oh God, this might end. Let's make sure this doesn't end up in fisticuffs. And he looks at you in the eye and he said, "Thank you."
It's amazing how
Just,
our judgment alarms go off, eh?
oh. But, it was good. The
It's
people
cool.
that
Like,
I
that's a good
met,
story.
oh, the people I met over there, how
Unbelievable.
accommodating. Oh, I remember I broke my glasses, walked into a local, just an optometrist, fixed it. I said, "Okay, how much you want?" "No charge. You're Canadian." I still get choked up.
That's amazing, man. Like
Yeah,
in so many years later. You
yeah,
know, this was kind of a nice thing to do for a Remembrance Day episode.
yeah.
But I gotta ask you, we've talked about a lot of things today. What haven't we mentioned? What would you like to close with? What would you like to say
Well, I
that you
think I
haven't said yet?
got a kind of a small list here, but no, I think I pretty much hit the highlights. Well, we talked for 2 hours. I could have a whole bunch more stories. I think these are the ones that were quite interesting, or I got through the things that I wanted you to
Oh,
hear.
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
so neat, Bob, that where you touched on with the role with Veteran Affairs federally and what
mhm.
you've gotten to experience from like the dawn
Oh,
of the internet to literally where we are today
yeah.
is is pretty unique experience if you ask me.
Oh, I look back on it. That's one thing that I think I retired now 18 years.
Oh, really?
So that's what 18 years of retirement does for you. Gives you lots of time to reflect on this stuff and think about it. And no, I have to admit, I've been a very, very fortunate person. I've always had wonderful people to work with for the most part. A few a-holes, but I mean, that's just people. You're going to run into them everywhere. But generally, I'm positive. And I always say, and I've said this for many years, I'm the luckiest man in the world. given the stuff that I've been given the chance to do, you know.
No, it's been
And
cool.
the last 2 years working on the average, or not the spiritual, but on the 60th anniversary.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, it was amazing, just amazing.
What a way to finish.
So, what's
Very
that?
cool. What a way to finish.
Oh yeah,
Very,
no,
very
it was
cool.
really.
And you still have a lot of associations which are kind of neat too, but it's like
Yeah,
it's just I'm so glad that you could join me again in a relatively short period to talk about this, because for me it's when as Remembrance Day takes place, I think it's very easy to kind of forget in our modern world that I can listen to music on my phone, any song that's been recorded instantly. I can
yeah,
do a podcast across this great nation that we live in.
it's
I
amazing,
mean,
isn't it?
it's just like I can literally order something from Amazon and have it here later in the day. Like there's some pretty stunning things that kind of take place. And yet there is a past that we have to kind of continue to cherish and understand, right?
I think we do. And even though I talked about 1996 and what 30
Right.
years have brought, um, I don't regret it. I'm glad for the journey.
Mm.
And the problem is we concentrate sometimes too much on results.
Oh,
If we take a voyage, think about it's the day to day. It's the one step at a time. And when you think back over the time period, yes, it seems by today's standards kind of crazy. Oh God, you had to do that. But it was a wonderful journey
hmm
getting from there to here. I just hope we were able to do it with the other technology that's down the road, and that it was forgiving. You can make mistakes and sometimes get out of it but when you think back, it was pretty rinky dink at times, some of the stuff you were doing. But the big issue, I think, is never lose the vision.
No, it is truly. It's funny that what thoughts crossed my mind is we were talking about um, being able to go back and find out so much about people in the past today. And we
Yeah,
will post the site that you were talking about where you can go back and
yeah.
find out where
I'll
maybe
send
family
you.
members, and
Yep,
and we can have that. But it's now like I'm now kind of I'm gonna go and I'm gonna type in a few names into Grok, which is the X's Twitter AI,
yep,
and find out what they bring me back. Because
yep.
now this will be interesting. Like we've not been able to do that kind of in history, and now we can suddenly do this,
Oh,
and it'll
yeah,
be interesting to see where that goes. But
yeah.
anyway,
No,
Bob, we should probably wrap this up. It's been
thank you,
wonderful
Doug.
to do this again. I was going to say these
I think at the same
conversations.
time it'd be boring. I mean, anybody that's been able to live through 4 hours of this, I got to give them some kind of medal.
So as we started the episode today, again, I'm going to dedicate this to, and I want to start with the person you mentioned, Smith, who
Malcolm Russell Smith, or Russell Malcolm Smith, and he was one of 8, I believe, with in the family,
okay.
and I think there was 5 that had gone overseas.
Oh wow.
5
Okay.
boy, and he was the only one didn't make it back. But
So
yeah,
we're dedicating this to Russell, Malcolm Russell,
Malcolm Russell.
to Malcolm Russell.
Interestingly enough, Russell Smith. There is a Russell Smith that lives in PEI, and he's part of our family,
Okay.
and he's the third generation of that name.
Oh wow.
And, yeah, and he
Interesting.
attended the funeral for Mom.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
So
his
Malcolm Russell
namesake.
Smith, we have Robert Pegg, my
Okay.
mom's older brother. We have,
Yeah.
I'll say, Betty and Leighton Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, both of them, they did not lose their lives. They served and were able to come back here
Yeah.
and have families. And I got to know both, both well. And of course, your dad, my
Yeah.
grandpa, who
Yeah.
was there and kind of had the crazy duty of having to clean up some of the things that were in place with the concentration camps. In particular,
What?
I don't get the name right here, but Belsum is the second word.
Belson, Burger Belson,
Bergen Belsum.
Berger dash Belson, Belsin.
And
Yeah.
that's from me on a personal basis. It's also to you watching today and those that lost or knew family that were part of the wars or even the part of the wars even today.
Yeah.
This is the remembrance of those, and I'll say some of the importance of those roles that they played in the history and the world that we get to live in today. And with
And
that, Bob, I'm going to thank you for joining me again. This has been terrific. I had no
thank
idea
you.
your background to that level. Perfect for a remembrance episode. And I thank you for listening. I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel, Better Than Not, like I said, so I can continue to bring you interesting people like we had today. And for that, bye for now.
Thank you. Have a good one, Doug.
Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not.